Start in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Two Half Squads. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave.
And today with us, we have two guests. Two. All the way from out east. Well, out east from respective to where we are. We've got Andrew Goldin. And then we have on the phone, the old-fashioned way, like they did in medieval times, we have John Gorkowski. Hey, John, how you doing?
Hello. Pretty good, thanks.
Good. Thanks for joining us. It's great to have you guys with us. And you guys are with us. You're both in Washington, D.C., and you're with the DC Conscripts. Is that it?
That's correct.
That's what they tell us.
Yeah. Really glad you could join us tonight.
I say a conscript, by definition, never does anything voluntarily. So we do as we're told.
That's good. So we've never met before, and I don't know if you guys listen to the show. If you don't,
of course we do.
We're going to talk about that. I'm glad you could be with us. So can you give us a little history? Maybe start with a little history of you guys and your gaming and the DC Conscripts in general.
Andy, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and kick off. I'm probably dating myself by fessing up, but I feel like we're in a safe space here, so I'll go ahead and out myself. As I first got introduced as squad leader when my friend John Muller bought a copy, probably in 1980, and we were playing that and a couple other sort of military-style board games, and there was something about squad leader which we found really attractive. I think it was the machine guns and the morale and the leadership, and no other game at the time had that. So of course, schoolwork, whatever. ASL came out. I got into that. I was really impressed with how the game had kind of been upgraded and the additional layers of complexity to it, which I'm preaching to the converted here, but ASL it really is the most realistic game of its type, hands down. Period. So the DC Conscripts. I want to ask John when the Conscripts first started kicking. Was sort of like the Phoenix. It'll fly for a while and then crash and then rise from the ashes again. Whenever a hero emerges. I think the Conscripts first got their start probably in the mid to late 90s. At least that's the earliest part that I know of. Although people in the DC area have been playing ASL really for quite some time. We gained the benefit, if you will, of being a fairly easy drive up to Baltimore, where of course Avalon Hill came from, and still. Obviously with MMP in Millersville, Maryland, it's just 45 minutes or so, 45 minutes an hour away. So I think one of the characteristics, or say one of the other key characteristics, if you will, of the DC Conscripts is, I will say hands down that we do have some of the best players in the hobby. Period. People like Gary Fortenberry, John Static, these guys have been playing, for decades. And they win tournaments and do all that stuff. So if you show up to a DC Conscripts get together, you never know who you're going to find, but it's just likely you're going to be playing with or against one of the guys who I hate using the word expert, but long time player, really good. So that's so more recently I got back into ASL, if you will. I guess in the early, right around 2010, 2011, when I just happened to find myself with some more time on my hands. How did that happen? I think I was in Afghanistan when somebody sent out an email, to the Conscripts list saying, hey, let's have a club meeting. And I was so surprised and pleased that, that interest was percolating again. I replied, say, hey, I'd love to come. It's just that I'm out of town for a while. So yeah. he hit me up, who else can I talk to? And I had some other contacts, and he managed to get the list going again. Sort of more recently, I looking back at it, I think that one of the keys to success, if you will, is that it does take the occasional hero to run with that demo charge and place it on the side of the tank and to really make something happen. And I think that we've been lucky in that whenever the 10-3 takes a bullet to the head from the sniper, there's someone else who steps up to do it. So that's
a lot
that's
of game
my
jargon.
experience
You
with
really
it.
got to know the game to understand all that.
Yeah,
But
that's right. Anyway,
I can
John, over to you.
I can I can back up what Andy said. I came back to the Northern Virginia area in the mid '90s after my naval service, and started looking for squad leader games to rejoin because I had played in high school, and I found the DC Conscripts, and then so I was able to use my ASL stuff. And back then, the DC Conscripts was a really big club. We would meet once a month in Fairfax, Virginia, with easily 20 people in attendance.
Yeah.
And you could just walk in and find a game if you hadn't bothered to arrange one in the week preceding. It was terrific. And we had some really top ranked players. And that went on for a few years. And then I went off to do some work with the State Department, lost touch with the club in the early 2000s. And then I came back circa 2010, and it was all gone. There was very little structure and infrequent meetings, not much going on. But I kept inquiring, and I was looking for the old crew, and onesie twosie I started finding people. And then I encountered David Garvin, who was the Canadian on duty here for a while, who basically held the club together for us. Yeah, he was our 10-3 for a while there. And then we started having more meetings. We leveraged the Senior Citizen Center a couple of times.
Yeah.
And some other venues to convene people. And then I started, I kind of restarted our old newsletter. I remember from the 1990s, we had a newsletter called Scripts, which was really well done, quite humorous. And then I put together, more recently, Red Banner to try and just have something written about our meetings. So now, we generally meet once a month, thanks largely to Andy and his organizational skills. And steady attendance of 6, 7, 8 people, with again as many who don't make it because they're busy with other parts of life. But we're carrying on, and we have a good core, solid cadre.
It does seem like there was an uptick in interest in ASL in general around 2010. I don't know if that's because of the Two Half Squads podcast, which has been started in 2008, and we were rekindling some of that, or the internet. Don't know. A lot of guys came back in.
Now we do know. We've had a lot of letters where they attribute us to. One guy wrote famously, "Curse you for making me go back out and buy all that stuff again that I had sold."
Yeah, I know. No,
but I think it's also kids, right? Like people getting through the child rearing ages, maybe. Is that also?
Oh yeah, that takes up a lot of time and attention, and there's a 10-year gap there where you can't spend time on the hobby. And the hobby is, all things considered, it's not that expensive. A full kit of ASL costs as much as 1 year of golf, so not that expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Yeah. A movie and a popcorn once a week is $20, So
it adds up. Yeah.
But going back to John's point, I think a club really needs probably 3 or 4 things, at least three things to kind of be successful and durable. I'd say one, like I said, leadership and hero, someone who's going to stand up and say, yeah, I'll organize the event this month. You need somebody to help stay in touch and to kind of generate interest during the month. And that's why I think John has done yeoman's work really with the Red Banner, prodding, needling people for articles and submitting game write-ups. And then, I'd say a third thing that I think you need is you need to have a regular club meeting schedule, because we've got probably, I think it's 110 people on the email list. I don't get any bounce backs. I know all the emails are good. Uh, but whether or not, Jeff, Joe, or John can come on any particular month, like John said, it just varies depending on who's coming. Um, I think something, like I said, kind of touch on something else going in our favor is physical proximity to MMP. The DC area, as it's grown, kind of gets people who come in and come out of town. People will be assigned here for 2-3 years, work at the Pentagon, whatever, and then roll on. So anyway, I think all of those are factors, if you will, that work in our favor.
Right. And, the best part of the hobby, of course, is playing the game. And we do a good deal of that here. We get plenty of face-to-face play. I think we're well positioned. But another thing that's really good is writing. And as the long-suffering editor of our Little Red Banner, I urge people to just go ahead and submit any written item you have. You don't have to be a scholar. We all have great games where really outlying events occur, and they're fun to write about. And it only takes 3 to 5 sentences to relay for the rest of the audience, how your Italian hero saved the day by single-handedly taking out a tank or something like that. And it happens every game, something
Or
amazing.
the lucky shot on the Panther, which John wrote about in great detail in one of the Red Banners. And yes, the Panther was mine.
Just record it. Record it and send it in. It's great fun to read.
Yeah. So, John, I haven't told you this, but the next article you're going to get from me and Eric is our Camp Group Piper campaign game write-up. We just
that'll
finished.
be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. We actually, again, one of the great things about Vassal is you've got everything right there. Even though Eric and I live only 20-30 minutes away, it's just easier to do it on Vassal because, we can come, crank up the game after the kids get to bed, play for a couple hours, and then, pick up again a couple days later. Actually, I now that I think about it, I think Vassal, even though it's not always as good, it's a different experience from face-to-face play. Honestly, that's one of the things that keeps me in the game for myself.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And Dave and I, we talked about Vassal for years and years and years, and I had sort of tried it, dabbled in a little bit, but just couldn't get into it. And then COVID happened, and I think it forced a lot of people to go into it. And now, can I say this, Dave? Should I tell this?
You can.
We said, Dave and I only live about 8 minutes apart. And
I can ride my bike there.
Yeah. We said, boy, let's get together now. We're all vaccinated. Let's get together and play. And then we thought about it. And we thought, this Vassal thing is really working out pretty well because, like you say, you can play a couple hours. Very easy. There's nothing to clean up or put away. And I'm a big fan of not having much just in the original setup. I'm not a big fan of setup. Dave used to come over and play, and I would just have all the counters out, just trying to dig through them.
I was like, oh, you don't have a defense set up, Jeff?
I didn't have the counters out. It's painful digging them out. Oh, Vassal, it's so easy. But yeah, that's been a really interesting aspect of the hobby. So I don't know what's going to happen, but at least it seems to have gotten people maybe back into the game and kept them in the game, even while we're all quarantining. So you mentioned something about having people kind of come in and go because of they're visiting the DC area for a little time. Does that happen a lot?
Is that the military guys, or is that?
Yeah.
Well, some, in the past, the DC area has acquired a reputation as being transient, right? So you come to DC for a job, you work it for a few years, and then maybe you go back to where you came from, or you go someplace else. I don't know, John. What do you think?
Yeah, that's everybody's story here. Northern Virginia attracts this enormous pool of federal and military employees. So a lot of our military people are only in town for the duration of a tour. And I'm with the State Department, and I had overseas assignments that took me away 3-4 years at a time. And so in and out, and most people are on that schedule, and you see it in every aspect of our lives, schooling and kids, sporting teams, etc. And of course, you see it in ASL, where a lot of people come and go. Fortunately, I'm getting older now, and I have more stability, and so I can stay here. And so now my opponents are more veterans, in the sense of we've been here for a while, and they're in a similar situation. They're coming, that time in their career where they're having to move a lot is coming to a close, and they're able to be more stable, and so we get more time together here to play the game. So it works out well.
It must be interesting, though, to have people come in and bring however they have learned to play, their styles or whatever. Because I hear about this, Dave, when we talk when we go to the ASL Open and we'll talk to players from overseas, they'll say other players from certain areas, have a certain kind of a distinctive style or a way of playing that sometimes surprises them or gives them a different perspective than they had before. So that must
you always learn from these other people, and that's one of the critical elements of going to a convention. I remember the first convention I went to, I think it was Avalon Con in like 1996, and I played 6 scenarios and I lost 5 of them, and each one was like, whoa, that's how bounding first fire works. Like, I had read about it in the rules, and I knew it was there, but then to actually witness it, at the hands of somebody who knew what they were doing. And so many aspects of the game are like that. You're vaguely aware of it, but you can't really make it your own until you witness it. And that's usually done by, a new person who introduces you to it.
Yeah, I sat and watched Gary Fortenberry at the ASLOC way long ago, and watched him smoke the enemy machine gun nests, and I was just shocked. Like, oh my gosh, that is so effective. It almost seems like cheating.
Yeah, exactly. You have to learn these things one at a time, and these are painful lessons. Yeah, but this is how it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm making another plug for the Red Banner here. I think that's why it's important to read whatever you can. And say, especially if you can't get in the game or you can't really play as much, if you can read about, like a scenario after action review, or one of my favorite articles, harkening back to the old General magazine, is still the scenario replay, where you've got a player from side 1 and the player from side 2, and then you've got the neutral observer, and the neutral observer says, well, they got this rule wrong, and they could have done that, they could have done the other. So I think that's a great way to learn. And this article, upcoming, John, will hopefully be like that. Like I said, it's me and Eric, and I hope to recruit Dave Garvin as a neutral third-party commentator. So hopefully it'll be really good.
Okay. I noticed looking at the Red Banner, you do have a scenario also in every issue, and it's produced quarterly.
Yeah, we've done a lot of scenarios, and we've paused now as we play test and reformat. So I think we made about 10 of them, and now we're trying to make them better rather than make new ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
And who brings those? Do you have 1 or 2 people that are kind of eager to bring scenarios in that they want to try creating?
I think we have 4 contributors. Four of our members have contributed scenarios, and they're all pretty good. These are labors of love. And the hard part of scenario design is watching somebody else chop up what you submitted, like any other artistic endeavor. But the original author of something is not necessarily the best judge of how fun or fair it is. And so that's the development process. And that's what we're in right now for these other scenarios. Like I said, I think we got 4 contributors. Happy to have more, but it's like writing. It's so hard. It's like pulling teeth, getting people to do this stuff. And it's not hard to do, and it's part of the fun of the game. So I'm always welcome submissions.
That's right. John will make you famous. Just send it in. We'll edit it, get your comments, and then you're famous.
Yeah, I'll run links to all of this on the show. But I noticed Gary Fortenberry is only standing in 9th place on the ladder for the DC Conscripts. How can that be?
Yeah, I think well, we get a little slack in terms of tracking our games. We don't always report every game. And, some of the veterans like Gary, they don't play as much as they used to, right? So they've lost some of their edge. And they could get it back again if they were vigorous players. But if you don't play like at least once a week, you start to lose some of that edge.
Well, yeah, today I moved a whole stack. I thought I was out of Jeff's line of sight, and then when he pointed out that I was still in his line of sight, again, after I've played over 1,333 games now in my lifetime, I've tracked all of them, and I just figured, screw it, I'm going to move his stack to go further. What are the odds? And of course, he rolls a 3, and then they all have to route through the woods, and then he moves up next to me, and I'm DM again, and then he rolls, I don't know, what was it, a 4, Jeff? He got K/4 on the whole stack, and I'm like, okay, why would I make that dumb rookie mistake when we preach against it on the podcast all the time? You just feel like, oh, come on, what are the odds, and then not bringing up guys to protect them when they were all sitting there broken in the front of they had to be out front because you had to put some on this other board. And my goal was, all they're going to do is move back and join the forces and protect the village. That's all I wanted to do. And it just went so bad. And I'm playing every week. I just can't explain the stupidity sometimes.
Well, that's how quickly good men die. And I think I think one of the things I find so compelling about the game is that is the luck factor. What I found, in my own military experience is that you can do everything right and still get killed, or you can totally screw up, and if you're lucky, you'll sail through, flags flying. So I know people get frustrated, with the luck aspects of the game, and so do I, from time to time. But on average, over time, the better players who play well win, and I think that's a reflection of real life, because in real life you can't control everything. There's always some element of chance. At the end of the day, it still could go either way. But again, in the game anyway, good players tend to win more than players who are not.
Yeah, absolutely true. Yes, and it tends to balance out the medium-sized scenario also, but it adds to that fun element. I had a rookie over last week, 2 weeks ago, our first back in person, and was teaching this guy. He only played one game before we stopped for COVID. He loves all the other games he does. He was doing my miniatures games with me and stuff, and he bought Gloomhaven and was teaching himself at all kinds of stuff he's doing. But he commented on the dice factor, and I said, well, there are games where it's just if you have a 4 factor against a 3, you just take it over, and this has its own magic when machine guns can break and then be repaired, and it just, to me, it's just a lot more fun.
It definitely is a lot more fun.
I think a lot of people miss that a big part of the game is probability and managing probabilities. So luck is a part of the game, but what's a bigger part of the game is managing probability. So some events aren't going to go your way, and so how do you manipulate your pieces to reduce the impact of bad luck? And how do you make your opponent pay when he takes a risk and suffers a bad luck? And this is a big part of the game, is all this probability management. You'll notice that excellent players are always doing something to shield themselves from bad luck, and they're usually well positioned when you make a mistake to take advantage of it.
Yeah, to surround the broken guys in the front. And
exactly. Yeah, and to John's point, I don't remember if I read it in an ASL fan or if someone told me that John's point, which is, or maybe it was John who told me that successful players do a better job of managing probability than their opponents. I mean, you could recently, or say not all that recently, but a friend of mine and I played the singling campaign game, which is a blast. It's a real challenge. To play the Americans, especially if you're not all that familiar with the ins and outs of. I'll tell you what, you play that campaign game 2 or 3 times, switching sides, you'll figure it out. And in singling or really most any game, if you can manipulate it so that you've got even just like an additional down 1 on that shot, it's going to be the difference between hitting and missing.
It's always amazes me how it doesn't seem like it could, but it does make the difference. That neg 1 makes all the difference. It's so true. And I remember when I first started playing, I'd think, well, what are the odds? What are the odds? What are the odds? And it's so many times I lost because I wasn't correctly thinking about how that worked. That still happens to me. Yeah, still happens to me. So
you guys also have a tournament. Is that that's the Human Wave? We have not been there. Someday we might, but we're just not good at getting around much together. But it would be fun to come out and interview everybody out there one day.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's a direct flight from Chicago. I used to do it all the time. United.
So it's Human Wave.
Yeah, tell us about that coming up.
Well, this Human Wave is going to be different because it's outside. We're going to do it under tents. So usually we're inside, but given the pandemic situation, we had to plan this months ago. So months ago, when we were looking at this, we said, what's the safest way to do this? We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but so we went for the outdoor effort, which I think will be pleasant. I've played outside several times.
Yeah.
In recent months, and it's really nice. You're at a table under an umbrella. And it's quite nice. So as long as it doesn't get scorching hot or we don't have gale force winds, it's quite manageable. And that's how it'll run this time. So far, I think we have 7 people signed up for the in-person, 4 people signed up for the Vassal, which is maybe half the attendance we've gotten in the past. But like I said, given the circumstances, that's not a bad thing. We'll think of this as a rebuilding year, get together, have some fun. And then next year return to a more normal situation.
Yeah. The previous year we had I think it was 20 or 25 people. We rented a really nice room at a local hotel. It was a really good event. I'm really glad it went off well. And like I said, people, I was surprised people came in from out of town, up and down the East Coast to come to this thing. And a lot of credit for that, I think, goes to David Garvin, his leadership and organizational skills. Honestly, I was kind of skeptical that we'd be able to pull it off, but we did. And so that was a lot of fun. And for this year, I give John credit for again, being the hero and helping put the plan together, at least to coming up with the idea. As far as again, if we want to talk about risk management, right? The greatest risk, if you will, we have is actually the cost of the deposit for of the room in whatever hotel we want to meet in. And especially if you want to get a nice central location, that can be kind of expensive. And like John was saying, when we I think we started planning this in like probably October, November, December timeframe. and it was really hard to anticipate, what was going to be next as far as what was going to open and what wasn't going to open. And in my conversations with different hotels, of course, it's a case of the deposit is non-negotiable, and we weren't going to try to second guess whatever the governor was going to sign or not sign as far as capacity restrictions and all that stuff. So we were right on the edge of just saying to heck with it. We'll do it on Vassal again. But John, to his credit, came up with the idea of saying, hey, we just play in my backyard. So this year's Human Wave is going to be in the backyard, like John said. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Oh, okay. So actually in John's backyard.
It's a secret, undisclosed location in Northern Virginia, which will be revealed only to attendees moments before your start time.
You don't pick them up at the airport and put that hood over their head.
That's kind of a good idea. Huh? Maybe we should look into that.
Yeah. Well, that's very nice. That's a nice idea. I hope that turns out well. That's July 9th through 11th. And of course, if anybody still would like to attend, they can just go to your humanwaveconscripts.com and they could probably sign up there. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes. We're happy to take more people. We've got a cap at 16 this year.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So if you want to come in serious, then sign up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, good. Well, you might when people know that because I know a lot of the tournaments have been canceled or have just switched completely to Vassal, and I don't know how that works for tournaments. I guess some people like it, but yeah, it's good that you're edging your way back to normalcy. That feels really good.
Yeah, we did Vassal for the Human Wave last year, and it was fun. It was a successful tournament. I want to say we had either 12 or 15 people, which was, I thought that was a really good number. And one of the fun things about it was we had people sign up to play, from literally around the world. David was running it, of course, from Canada, and I got to play. So one gentleman was in Spain, and I think the other one was in Taiwan or something like that.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, so it was a lot of fun. We had a good time.
Yeah. So
now the Vassal, the Vassal part, it takes longer, right? Dave Goldman from the ASL Open was kind of saying it took longer for people to be able to coordinate their schedules with playing their opponents because everyone wasn't there on the same weekend. Did you find that to be the case also?
Yes, especially if you're talking about cross time zones. I think what we did was we gave each match, if you will, 24 hours to play. So that way, regardless of the time zone difference, you could you could work something out. So obviously, instead of doing it over 2 or 3 days, we took, I guess it was 4 or 5 actually. But we used. I think we used the Canadian Open rules for it, and that along with some stuff that I thought it was Steve Plava who posted it on the Game Squad, some ASL tournament rules there or Vassal rules, and it worked really well.
Yeah, so I'm curious, John, what do you like to play? What are there particular kinds of scenarios that you like to play, or particular hardware?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what do you like?
My favorite is Kursk. I like all the Kursk scenarios.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's great. I love the infantry armor mix, especially when the armor is sort of at parity. So no one side is completely dominating the field, where each guy's tanks are vulnerable to fire from the other guy's tanks, and that time frame also illustrates, sort of the fundamentals of armored warfare, and you can really see the differences in the opposing armor. The T-34s, so much more effective up close, and the Panzer IV armor's weaker, but very good, sort of medium range. And then you've got, of course, the Tigers and the Ferdinands, which are just ludicrous at long range. And then they can only be dealt with at close range. And so all these sort of, key tactical questions come into play through those kinds of scenarios. And, there's lots of situations that would resemble that. Any sort of combined arms action from the middle of the war pretty much fits that pattern. And then on the other side, there's scenarios I don't particularly like. And it's hard to think of some that I really don't like. I mean, the game just offers so many opportunities to sort of examine the history in all of its variety. So I guess there's a reluctance on my part to get involved with caves because, reading all those additional rules for that esoteric situation, it just seems, too much effort for not enough reward, given everything else you could play, all the other stuff you could do. Why spend all that time learning caves?
I have dutifully learned everything and played all the scenarios because that's just how I am. It's like my job or something when I buy a game. But revisiting it, and even Jeff and I did the show on the landing craft, and then it ends up coming out in the action pack that I think Fortenberry did. Yeah, this the one with a lot of the Japanese scenarios, AP 86 and 85 and all these. And there was one with landing craft. And as soon as we got the board set up, we kind of laughed like, we just did a show on this, and how do we shoot at these things again?
Exactly. It takes so much effort to remember those corner cases.
Yeah. So we, luckily these were unloaded really quickly, and we didn't have to deal that much with going back through that rule section. But anyway, that's totally true. So we're playing a lot of Pacific, and I do like that a lot, just with the way the Japanese stripe and that hidden bit when you can go right through them and they pop up behind you because you didn't search the hex and all that kind of stuff in the jungle, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the nationality distinctions are terrific.
Yeah, but we're not doing caves currently until one pops up. I don't know if Fortenberry put one in that pack or not. We'll find out soon.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, my favorite is definitely U.S. versus German, sort of June-December 44. Okay. I guess it's because we played singling so much. I don't know, but I think it's really challenging. John touched on a couple interesting points. Sherman versus Mark IV, or even the Stuart versus a heavy German tank. On its face, it seems like a real mismatch. But if you can really learn, understand the ins and outs of American armor, the smoke and the gyro stabilizer and bounding for fire and doing gun duels and the possibility of multiple hits, with that 75 against the flank of a Panther or something, it gets to be really, really real interesting. I think the favorite kind of types of games that I like are the campaign games. I feel like the campaign games are quote unquote more realistic, right? Because as everyone knows well, in a regular scenario, you've got the end of turn, end of game. Oh crap! I've got one more turn, so I'm going to throw everybody at them.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's a very, very realistic way to do it, but
no,
it'll be fine. But of course, in the campaign game, you don't want to do that because it'll give you less to work with in the next round.
Yeah.
That reminds me of something I think about a lot is that end of game, last turn, suicide rush. That's often a consequence of how the victory conditions are written, and so we fall into these ruts in our hobby, and we say to win, side A must capture the building by the end of the game. And that kind of victory condition is generating that circumstance. So if you modify the victory conditions, a lot of times you can alleviate those sorts of situations.
Put a combat victory point cap on the tacker.
Yeah, stuff like
without-
that. Stuff
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, Dave and I just played a scenario from this action pack where there was a victory condition where if he took over a certain number of buildings by the end of turn, was it turn 2, Dave? Or
Three.
Turn
Turn 3.
3.
Yeah.
He would win. If he didn't, then it would have to, then by turn 5, he would have to do something different. And by turn 7, it was something different. And I actually like the way that turned out, even though I lost in turn 3. He managed to get that yeah, he managed to get that building, even though he did another one of those. Can I tell this, Dave? I will anyway. Another one of those stacks. He ran a stack down the beach right past my 137.
On the beach.
I paid
It's
them
a
right.
137.
I'm Japanese.
It rolled snake eyes and
Oh
kaboom.
my.
Yeah. Again, I'm like,
Well,
what
I
are the odds?
But that kind of
I can
victory
beat that.
condition, I actually like the way that. Yeah, go ahead, John.
I've had some games where, the other guy, it's like last turn, I'm moving on to the victory objective. The other guy needs to roll snake eyes to knock me out. And he says, "Come on, snake eyes." And sure enough, there they are.
Yeah,
That's brutal.
that is
That
brilliant.
36 chance, right? Yeah,
And that
brutal.
seems to happen to me a lot, that I'm calling the, break the gun. But I'm sure I say it a bunch of times it doesn't happen. I just remember the times that it actually happened when I called it. But
Correct.
Yeah, it
Correct.
never happens when you're at the craps table, that's for sure.
no. Now, I notice also here that is this for real, Andy? You did a symposium on machine guns at the club meetings?
Yes. Yeah, that was last month. Again, I think something that we figured out is that it's important to have regular meetings and put it on the calendar so everybody knows about it. It's easier to come. You develop some more momentum, and in kicking around some ideas with the central committee, the committee decided that we would offer some workshops. So it just kind of served as an additional draw. Last month it was machine guns, and I guess you could kind of call it a rules walk. I think I posted my notes on that.
Yeah,
and,
the handout. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I simply step through, each rule, kind of what it means, and periodically we would do some examples. Okay, here's my rate of fire. Here's your fire lane. Let's see what happens when you try to cross this, 2 down 2 fire lane. Okay, well, roll some dice. Oh, that didn't work out very well. Oh, you got lucky that time. So by kind of covering the rules and then kind of like John said, applying them immediately, you're more likely to remember. Plus, the other thing that it does is that it helps get kind of upgrade, if you will, the skills of our members, especially those guys who are playing starter kit, or guys who are just getting back into the game, after some hiatus for some time. So kind of helps upgrade the skills, help guys feel more comfortable with it. It's a win. This month, actually at the end of this week, in our regular meeting, we've got to go into the ins and outs of concealment.
Yeah,
so that'll be fun.
And right. How long is the so this is on a club evening meeting time?
Yeah, our regular meeting times at 10 o'clock at a game store in Fairfax City called Games Comics Paradise.
Oh, Saturday.
It's on Saturday. Yeah. That's right. Got to make the play. Hey, they're nice people. They're always very accommodating. I feel a little badly. We should probably buy more of their stuff. They've got a nice sized game room kind of in the back, and like we've never been pushed out. There's always plenty of room. So that's and Fairfax City is centrally located for us in Northern Virginia, kind of DC area.
And then do people take a break to go to the conference or symposium or lecture?
Workshop.
Workshop.
I think what we figured out is off at 1,000 hours with the workshop. I had originally planned for the quote unquote workshop. I thought it would just be 20, 30 minutes, but we ended up going probably a better part of an hour just with some questions and answers and running through some examples and things like that. And then it was game time.
Cool. That's a great touch. Yeah.
It gives. It seems like it makes it a little more social rather than people just coming in and sitting down with their opponent, and they become this little unit that doesn't interact. Yeah. So that's nice.
And then I notice on your links page, you don't have any podcasts linked on your links page. So
I'll fire the webmaster and find someone else.
But maybe we'll link two half squads. That's a good idea.
Maybe a good idea.
Just this episode. Anyway.
What's taken us so long to get in touch with you guys too? I mean, that's crazy. 275 shows and we haven't even gotten in touch with you. Someone had sent us an email probably 5 years ago and said, "Hey, interview these guys." It's just that's how we get backed up so much, and it's amazing. But 2 shows a month, and then it's like, wow, where did the year go? And then the next year, and but yeah, we think we've said. I think it was Jeff's idea, like even, I don't even know, 5-10 years ago. He's like, we should just start interviewing all the different clubs. Yeah. And it's probably the time we made that offhand comment that someone sent us the email recommending you guys.
Again, the beauty and the pain of ASL is that very few, if any of us, get to do this full time. So it's always on the side when you've got time for it.
Well, and it wasn't that long ago when we were kind of scraping for ideas for the show, because they're just one of the big parts of the show is introducing new products and stuff like that. And it was so rare. And for years, we got mileage out of the fact that there were so few products available. We would be making jokes about Kota Bushido and stuff like that, and all this stuff being out of print. Now stuff is just spewing out. It's being shot out of cannons. It's just unbelievable. Every time you turn around, there's more products. And so how do you guys keep up with that? Are you buying it all, John? Are you buying everything that comes out, or how are you pacing yourself?
I'm now buying an archival set because I fear this current rush of production is the beginning of the end, right? Like the stewards of the hobby are getting on in their years, and they're no longer going to be able to crank stuff out. And now's the time to top off all the collections, because I'm afraid in the not too distant future we'll go back to this drought season where products are few and far between.
Yeah, that's a great point, John. And the other part of it is that all of these publishers, MMP and the third party publishers, they do a limited production run, and a lot of times when it's done, it's done. That's it. So if something comes out that looks interesting to you, or you think you might want it, you should just buy it. That way you've got it. Hopefully you'll get a chance to play with it.
Yeah, I have that operation. Also, go ahead, John.
So I was going to say, it also might be time to start thinking about changes to the game. And I'm not saying this is anything we need to rush, but we could still have fundamentally the same game, but make some changes to the rules to make it easier, more accessible, etc. So, for example, why do we need half-inch counters? Why can't all counters be 5/8 of an inch? There's no real reason that we have to have some counters smaller than others. And
True.
The smaller counters are harder to read and harder to grasp. So it might be time to start thinking about, well, what if we had a version where all the counters were 5/8 of an inch? And then, we've all struggled with the minutia of the rules. And, there are certain simple adjustments one could make that would alleviate a lot of complexity, but still preserve the core game. And so no harm in talking about those things. And that might be one way to sort of, increase the game's longevity.
Yeah. And you mean beyond starter kit? changes, something not as drastic.
Yeah. Like we haven't had a new edition since what, like 1980 something. That's the last time we had an edition.
Yeah.
Everything has been fundamentally the same since then, and I understand why, and I'm not upset about it. I'm just saying, after 40 years of experimentation, we've probably learned a few things, and it wouldn't be bad to make some changes. One thing I like to toy with is, what if there were no advance phase? And when you start thinking about that, you realize, man, this game could play much faster with fewer arguments and some considerable ease if we didn't have an advance phase. And that's what I'm talking about, is there's some fundamental things in there that are not necessarily sort of integral to the simulation. They're just that, that's what the original designers cooked up. And 40 years of practice has shown, well, maybe that's not so necessary.
Well, and then we could always get into religious arguments. I feel like ASLers are the kind of people who might be somewhat more resistant or skeptical to change, John. I think those are some interesting points.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, take a look at the regular fire, the infantry fire table versus the incremental fire table. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I played with people who would never, ever use incremental fire table. I personally think it's a really good idea. I mean, how many times have you had 3 firepower, 3.5 firepower? Again, it seems more realistic to me, right? That you'd want to fire the squad and the machine gun, but sorry, it doesn't quite work out on the table, so I'm not going to find the machine gun.
Yeah,
well,
today...
These are all good points.
Yeah, today Jeff saved a light machine gun by not using it in the advancing fire phase and rolling an 11. So, but as Bob Holmstrom said on this show quite a while back, the problem is, Dave, basically I have the original table. I have it memorized.
That's right. So, I've heard that.
So go to the one. Yeah.
It's not a good enough argument. Yeah, but it's an interesting idea, John. It would be certainly, when I think about it, I think, man, that would be a massive undertaking. But maybe not. I don't know.
Well, it'd be huge because so many people are committed to the prevailing system, and there's a good reason for that. We have a stable rule set that sustains a large community, so I can always find an opponent. So I'm not saying our current approach is bad, but I am saying, when you look at the rules from a logical point of view, you have to ask some questions. And so some of these are, it's not a question of realism or that, it's just a question of the game we could keep it fundamentally the same, but make it run better. For example, the advance phase, when they created, in ASL, when they created assault movement, they essentially got rid of the whole reason for the advance phase. When Squad Leader first came out in the 70s, the advance phase was created expressly to simulate that sort of slow, close to contact movement, and that's what that was about. And then 10 years later, they cook up this assault move concept and put it in the rules. That got rid of the need for the advance phase. And so one could just say, as long as you move only one hex, you can enter an enemy-occupied hex, and assault move simulates a cautious, slow movement that used to be sort of assumed in the advance phase. And then, the existence of the advance phase violates a sort of one of the fundamental maxims of sort of modern warfare, and it's that movement draws fire. In the advance phase, you can violate that. That's like that is to warfare as E equals MC squared is to physics. But we're violating that every time we conduct an advance phase, because you can advance into the street, nobody can shoot at you, and then there's that whole skulking thing, and whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, that whole argument would just float away if we didn't have an advance phase.
Yeah, true. That's
no matter which side you were on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because again, the first time I saw that done was my friend Wally that taught me the system back in '85. kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
He dragged me through all the rule sections, and he did that skulk, and I'm like, well, that's just doesn't make any sense. And he's like, well, we're hiding, I guess now, and then we're popping back up at
Yeah.
the window. And I'm like, well, but if you're hiding, I don't know, it doesn't make sense, Wally. And he's like, yeah, man, maybe not, but it's something you can do, I guess. And I think he and I were just teaching ourselves.
Consequence of the turn structure. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
That's just a consequence of the turn structure. And again, you don't have to like it or not, or argue for it or against it, but its existence complicates and prolongs the game.
Yes.
And so one could streamline, and you would still have the fundamentals of the game. The fundamentals of fire and movement, leadership would still be there, but you wouldn't have all of this thought going into how to take advantage of the turn structure.
Yeah, and then I wonder if that would affect the lengths of the games. Like if everyone's now playing it with skulking, and then if we took it out, it might change some of the dynamics of how long you should have.
They'd get shorter. The games would get shorter. Yeah. Yeah,
because you got to prep and then you can't move and the whole thing. It's a great point. Never really thought of that. And I think MMP missed the boat on the redoing all the boards. Those should have been larger. Texas, do you guys agree or?
Yeah, I mean that's another option. Is the hexes don't have to be a certain size. You could modify the size of the hexes. So there's things we could explore.
Yeah.
So if the Catholic Church can change, we can change.
Yeah.
Don't write us, folks. If you disagree with any of this, write to John. He's like the Andrew Yang of the ASL world.
Yeah, the views and thoughts expressed on the show are not necessarily the opinions of the hosts. But
it makes for good viewing.
It does.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yes, it does.
When I went back to playing live, face to face, a couple weeks ago here, I got out that stuff. Everything looked small to me.
Yeah.
The counters looked teeny, and I don't know if I was enlarging it on Vassal, and then everything looked teeny. And I have these boards that somehow they're larger than the normal scale boards, if you've noticed on Twitter. And I got out one of the original boards, and the thing is, it just looks so teeny. And then you got used to playing on historical size, right? That's a good size. Like Red Barricades, right? Yeah. It's just slightly larger.
Right.
There's a little room.
Yeah. Give you some room.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're small.
Well, we're going close to an hour here. What are we missing? Anything you guys want to add or clarify or?
Well, I'd just like to thank you guys for doing all the great work that you do. I think your podcast, Two Half Squads, it's a great resource for both a rules walk and explanation. And I really enjoy your shows in which you interview the producers of some of these new games. For example, the Biazzo Ridge podcast I thought was really informative. So things like that. It's I always find it interesting to hear about or to learn what the designer was thinking when he chose to do a certain thing vice something else. So I think stuff like that is really interesting.
Yeah, thank you. I like how both of our clubs or our names, both of our names are demeaning. Like half squads and conscripts. There's no big egos we're dealing with both of our groups here.
Yeah, that's totally
well.
Right.
It's been great having you guys on. Really a pleasure. And sorry it took so long.
Well, thanks for hosting.
Hopefully it was worth it.
Thanks for hosting and thanks for organizing.
Yeah, Dave, Jeff, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. It's been a blast.
Yeah, and we look forward to staying in touch and hearing about how the human wave turns out, and we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll take some pictures.
Oh, terrific. Yeah, that would be great.
All right, then.
So we'll do our usual sign off. Yeah,
which
is we say, remember to roll low.
And rally well, but not when you're playing us.
That's right.
Oh, boy.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks.
All right, take care.